Close your eyes and let the scene flicker awake. The air is thick with incense, amber, oud, and just a little too much rose oil, like someone spilled perfume on the cushions again. Velvet drapes hang in folds so heavy they seem to hush the room, muffling every sound except the faint tinkling of silver cups being set down by pale hands. You are inside a palace that pretends to be eternal, where the chandeliers glitter harder than the stars outside. But the shimmer is only skin deep. Beneath it, everyone knows one wrong glance, one misplaced word could tighten around your neck. Like what you are seeing? Hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'm always reading them. You shift in the silk cushions, heart pacing to the rhythm of the music, that lazy thrum of oud strings. Floating from the corner, the harem is alive with laughter that feels practiced, with smiles painted as carefully as the calligraphy lining the walls. You feel the tension hiding underneath, the knowledge that beauty here is both blessing and trap. To be chosen is triumph, to be dismissed is doom. And the Sultan? He is less a man than a weather system. When his gaze warms, the room blooms. When it hardens, clouds gather. In every corner, tonight, thunder is forming. The story winds itself around you. Whispers of concubines sewn into sacks, dropped into the dark sea like unwanted treasure. Some swear it happened in the reign of Murad. Ivy. Others murmur about Mehmed Foster, and still others argue it was a tale recycled by traveling diplomats eager to shock the folks back home. Historians still argue whether this punishment was law, rumor, or performance designed to frighten future favorites into obedience. But inside the hall, with the Sultan's eyes narrowing, the difference between rumor and reality no longer matters. Your breath shortens because you feel what the women felt. The ground tilting, the silk cushion suddenly a sinking ship. A servant refills your goblet with sherbet, and you almost laugh, because who can drink sugar water while waiting to see if someone across? The carpet might vanish forever, but the court thrives on this contrast. Honey desserts beside bitter secrets, music to cover the silence of plotting. Once, in the same city, people thought crocodile dung made excellent sunscreen. Compared to that, maybe stitching someone into a sack doesn't feel so far-fetched. Your mind drifts, then jerks back when the Sultan raises a jeweled hand. The music stops mid-note. Everyone freezes like a painted miniature. The Sultan's voice glides low, like a blade wrapped in velvet. He names a girl. Her name no one will repeat tomorrow, because the palace erases quickly. She has been caught whispering to a guard, they say, or maybe she sang a song that reminded him of a rival. The reasons are always vague, floating around like smoke, but the punishment, clear, sharp, merciless. You watch the girl's eyes widen, the room tightening around her. Nobody protests. The walls themselves seem to lean in, eager to hear the sentence land. You glance at the eunuchs, those silent guardians of this world. They shift almost imperceptibly, already prepared for what comes next, their faces unreadable, as if carved from marble. You wonder how many times they've stood in that exact spot, pretending their hearts are made of stone. A single concubine gasps, too loud, and bites her lip until it bleeds. You too feel the scream pressing at your throat, but you swallow it, 'cause here. Survival means silence, and yet part of you notices the absurdity, the sheer logistics of sewing someone into a sack. Is there an official seamstress for executions? Do they keep a pile of special sacks in the storeroom, neatly folded, waiting? It's grotesque. But your brain can't help poking fun when the terror presses too close. Maybe the palace tailors brag about double stitching. Maybe. The accountants list linen for sack use in the treasury records, sandwiched between peacock feathers and cinnamon sticks. But the reality is heavier. You can feel the sack's coarse fibers against your own. Skin, smell the musty cloth. The girl struggles as the eunuchs step forward, and you realize how quiet the room has become. Even the flames in the lamps seem to shrink back. Flickering nervously, she is dragged away, her anklets clinking like a broken song. You think of the Bosphorus, its current strong enough to pull ships sideways. Throw a sack into that, and it's gone in seconds. The sea becomes accomplice and graveyard. Fishermen might haul up an empty sack one morning, torn by rocks, and mutter prayers they will never repeat aloud. Legends of mermaids? Maybe just echoes of those who sank too deep to return. You lean back, trying to steady your breath, pretending not to imagine your own turn, because in this palace, loyalty is not armor. Beauty is not protection. Even silence cannot save you if the Sultan wakes tomorrow with a different mood. He is absolute, a storm in human form. And you? You are just another figure waiting to be noticed or erased. Still, the court resumes its performance. Musicians start again, awkwardly, as if nothing happened. Sweet pastries appear, dripping with honey. One bold fool cracks a joke about the sack trade being excellent this year. Laughter bubbles up, thin, brittle, like glass that could shatter with a touch. You force yourself to smile. Though your stomach feels heavy as stone, this is survival, to act as if drowning does not exist. But deep down, you cannot forget the sound of her anklets fading, swallowed by the palace corridors. You cannot ignore the image of the dark water closing over her sack. You sip sherbet, cold and too sweet, and wonder if anyone will remember her. Tomorrow, probably not. Memory here is edited like a manuscript, but you remember, and you realize you are trapped in a story where forgetting is almost as cruel as the punishment itself. The Sultan leans back, satisfied. For now, the storm has passed. You exhale slowly, pretending you weren't holding your breath, but your heart knows better. The sea is still. Waiting? The sacks are still folded, and power still hangs by a single silk thread. You drift with her now, pulled through dim corridors that smell of damp stone and candle smoke. The sack lies slack in a guard's hands, rough as burlap, whispering against the tiles. You follow, even though your feet hesitate, because once you've heard the Sultan's sentence, you can't turn away. The night air slaps cool across your cheeks as the doors open. Outside, the Bosphorus waits, black, restless, always hungry. The moon hangs like a tarnished coin above the water, and you can almost hear the sea's smug chuckle. Oh, another one? Toss her in. I've got room. You almost want to tell it to quit bragging. But then the eunuchs lower the sack to the deck of a small boat, and all humor dies in your throat. She thrashes inside, muffled cries turning into dull thuds against the cloth. You know what's coming, yet the inevitability makes your skin crawl. The oars dip, slicing the surface, carrying you. Away from the palace lights, the silence of the rowers feels heavier than the night itself. Not a single whisper, no murmur of prayer, not even the cough of a throat. You think of the official chronicles, the Ottoman court records with their dry lines about laws and executions. They rarely mention women like her, never bother noting sack counts. Historians still argue whether this particular punishment was codified in law or just applied selectively. But in this moment, Argument feels meaningless. The water is proof enough. She goes overboard with a splash. Too small for the weight of fear it carries. The ripples fade quickly, as if embarrassed by their own existence. The boat rocks once, then steadies. And that's it. No ceremony. No last words carved in stone, just a sack and the sea, partners in silence. You stare into the dark water, straining to see something, anything, that acknowledges her existence. But the Bosphorus is practiced at swallowing secrets. You shiver, because this is how stories are born. The fishermen will whisper of ghosts beneath their nets. Sailors will joke nervously about sacks brushing their hulls. And travelers will carry tales back to Venice, Paris, London. One diplomat might write a scandalized letter. You won't believe what these Ottomans do to their concubines. And perhaps he exaggerates. Perhaps he spices it up for the gossip-hungry salons back home. But exaggeration doesn't matter once rumor becomes myth. In fact, you can already sense how the tale twists in. The telling. Some say dozens of concubines went in at once, like a grim flotilla of sacks bobbing briefly before vanishing. Others insist it was a single unlucky girl punished too. Warn the rest. And then there are those fringe accounts, half mad, suggesting the sacks were filled with cats or dogs instead of women, ritual stand-ins, so the Sultan could vent his wrath without thinning his harem too much. The truth? Slippery as the water beneath you. You lean closer to the edge of the boat, the spray cooling your face. For a moment, you almost imagine she slips free, cutting her way out of the sack with hidden strength, swimming towards some distant shore. Maybe she escapes, builds a new life. Tells her story in whispers by fire. A hopeful fantasy, yes, but your brain clings to it because hope makes the silence less unbearable. The rowers turn the boat back towards shore. Palace lamps twinkle faintly in the distance, like indifferent stars. You think of the women left behind, sitting on their cushions, nibbling on dates, forcing smiles. We'll notice one less laugh tomorrow, one missing pair of earrings, one silence too loud to ignore. But they'll carry on, because pretending is safer than remembering. A sudden thought interrupts the economics of sacks. You almost laugh again, though it feels wrong. Imagine the palace quartermaster scribbling in his ledger. Purchased 30 sacks, strong weave, suitable for grain or concubines. It's macabre, yes, but bureaucracy doesn't care what you put inside. Grain, spices, or people. Linen is linen. Maybe the tailor's apprentice asked why he was making so many oversized bags, and the master shrugged. Don't ask questions. The palace pays well. Sometimes history is less grand tragedy and more office paperwork, back on shore. The eunuchs disembark without a word. The boat rocks, relieved of its burden. You trail behind, your feet heavy, like the weight of the sea still clings to your ankles. The palace looms again, vast and smug, as if nothing happened. And in a way, nothing did. At least nothing that will make it into the official archives. Tomorrow's scroll will mention a new law, a trade deal, maybe the Sultan's hunting trip, but no word about a girl and a sack. And that's the sharpest cruelty, not just the drowning, but the forgetting. The punishment isn't only physical, it erases you, makes you into rumor, makes your existence depend on whether some historian centuries later decides to footnote your story. You, standing there, realize that's why the legend endures, because people fear being forgotten more than they fear the sack itself. The harem continues. New favorites arrive. Perfumes are uncorked. Musicians pluck their strings. Gossip flows again. Life resumes, layered with denial. And you? You carry the memory of the splash, the sack, the silence. Even as laughter bubbles up in the halls, you hear the muffled thuds inside your chest. The sea keeps its secrets, but you've seen enough to know. Those secrets leak. A song hummed by a servant, a rumor slipped to a traveler, a story embroidered into a tapestry decades later. The Bosphorus may be wide, but words travel wider. That's why you're here now, centuries later, whispering along. The Sultan sits content, thinking he has controlled everything. The women, the rumors, even the sea. But you know the truth. Control is a sack with fraying seams. The water always finds a way to spill, and so the tale lingers, swaying between fact and fable, cruelty and exaggeration. You stand in that liminal space, knowing you can never be sure. Did it happen as described? Or is it just a story sharpened by fear? Historians still argue whether the Sultan himself ordered it, or whether courtiers invented the tale. But the debate misses the point. The story survives because it touches something primal, the fear of being silenced, of being thrown away, of vanishing, without trace. The music resumes in the palace, soft, drowsy, as if coaxing you back into calm. Your heartbeat slows, though the memory of water clings. You let the final image blur, sacks sinking, waves smoothing over, night closing in. The cruel theater fades into silence, and your mind drifts into that whispering darkness. Thank you for listening. I'll leave you here. This is where I fade out. We're always saying goodbye.